So in this lab, the spine that we are using is a baby spine switch, which is 9336PQ. The leaves that we are using are 9396 across both the leaves. Okay, so this is 9396 on both of them. Now on leaf 1, there is an end host device which is connected on the respective interfaces, which is 1/21. Similarly, on leaf 2, we have another end host device which is connected on interfaces 1/27 on the leaf and 4/27 on the host. So this lab is called as bare metal host. Now what we are doing is on the host, right, the IP address of the host of that interface, I keep it as, I'll choose some other IP. So let's say I'll keep it as 11.1.1.1. This side, I'll choose it as 11.1.1.2/24. Okay. Now what I need to do is I need to group both of these hosts, host 1 as well as host 2, in one EPG. Okay, now what I need to do basically is to group both of these host devices into one EPG, and I'll just call this EPG as BMH, which is bare metal host. Again, you can give any naming for your EPG. Okay, so this is my agenda. Both the hosts belong to the same subnet. So both the hosts will have that one gateway IP address that I can configure for that particular subnet. So let's say I configure the gateway IP address as 254/24. So this gateway IP address I need to configure under the bridge domain. Okay, so this is our lab. Very simple, very basic. This is just for you to understand the concept of EPG and how it is that you can associate these hosts to your EPG and let them communicate with each other. First example is where both the hosts belong to the same subnets and both the hosts are in the same EPG. Okay, so let's start off with the configurations. Now over here, just going to open ACI. So we only have one APIC on our end. Okay, so in NetMetric, there is only one APIC that we are using. And this APIC, we have given the out-of-band management IP address of 20.0.254.11. This is the out-of-band management IP address of our APIC, and we are using only one. So this is the dashboard page wherein you see all of the faults, events, logs, any errors that may occur. You will be able to see it over here. Also, you can be able to see the health score, health cards of each of the leaves and spines, as well as the tenants if created. As of now, this is a fresh fabric. No tenants have been created. No user tenants have been created. But of course, if you remember, by default, there are always these 3 tenants which are created. It is system created. Okay, so in ACI, now you can see there are multiple tabs. Go through each of the tabs as we move towards the different labs. But for today, I want to keep things simple for you because this is the very first lab. I don't want to overload you with a lot of information. So what we need to do is to just configure these interfaces associated with the leaves and get this connected to the host and all of that. Everything to do with the connectivity. All right. So for that, let's move towards the fabric tab. Please do make note of this. With respect to your connections, right? With respect to connections between the leaves and the end points, all of these connections between the leaves and your endpoints can only be done under one tab, and that is under the fabric tab. Under the fabric tab, again, you have sub tabs as well. So there's something called as inventory. Inventory, it's like a list, like a registered list of all of these devices that have been registered with us. So if I just click on fabric membership. Now you can see here, these are the devices that we have in our lab. Okay, so you can see these are the serial numbers, the pod ID, the node ID. Okay, so you can see these are the serial numbers, the pod ID, the node ID, node name. These two are mandatory whenever it comes to registering the leaves or the spines to your to your APIC. All right. So there's node ID. You can give any numerical value. So 201.102.101, and you can give the appropriate names for your device. You will also be able to see the hardware model of your device. So as a spine, we're using 9336. If you remember, is called as baby spine. And then the two leaves that we have is the 9396PX. The role, you will be able to see the IP. What IP is this? This is nothing but the VTEP IP address that has been assigned to each of these devices. Whether it's a supported model, whether it has a valid SSL certificate, and the status of that particular device. Okay, so all of these informations you will be able to see under the inventory. So basically under the inventory, you will be able to see all your devices that are in your ACI fabric. Next is the fabric policies. So fabric policies means policies that you would have to configure between leaves and spines, between these devices. Whatever policies that you may have to create, all of these policies are said to be fabric policies. Please make note of this. Fabric policies are policies to be created within your ACI fabric. Matlab, only between your leaves as well as your spines. Apart from that, you can see there's another subtab which is called as access policies. Access policies are policies that you're supposed to be creating between your leaves and your endpoints. Okay, so over here, what we want is to configure access policies because we need to configure it between the leaves as well as the endpoints. Now, there are quite a lot of options that are available for you. How I like to start off is from the bottom. Okay, even if you start from the top, configuring from the top, switch policies and then moving downwards, it does not matter, it does not make any such difference. Okay, at the end you're achieving the same thing, but for me, I find it easier when I go from the bottom towards the top. So you can choose according to your convenience and according to your ease as to how it is that you want to configure your policies. Okay, so first is I'll go towards the pools. So I'll just create a pool. I'll create a VLAN pool just with one VLAN ID. So I'll call this as BMH VLAN. I call this as BMH VLAN. Now, when you want to create VLAN again, if you remember, I had mentioned to you that in ACI, you might come across different policies, different pools where it will ask you if you want to choose dynamic allocation or static. Dynamic is where you are configuring the VLANs or where you're configuring for your virtual machines. But over here, we are not configuring it for our virtual machines. There are actually physical devices that are connected. The hosts over here, host 1, host 2, these are our physical devices. So I should be choosing the allocation as my static allocation. Static is for your physical devices, dynamic is for your virtual devices. Okay. Next, I need to mention the VLAN, or you can even mention a range of VLANs. Again, I'm not choosing a range, I'm just choosing one VLAN and I'm just clicking on OK. So now my one VLAN has been created and it is for my bare metal host devices. Okay. Next, the next option that you should go to is something called as global policies. Now, under the global policy, if you just expand this, you will be able to find something called as attachable access entity profile. Please make note of these steps. They will really help you. The this part, right, access policies में अभी मैं जो भी कर रही हूँ, it is common across all of the labs in ACI. For every single lab, you have to come to the access policy. So please do make note. First is I went to the pool. That again, like I'm saying, it's easier for me in my head to go from the bottom. Okay, first I create my pools and then I create the attachable access entity profile and then I move to the interface and then I move to the switch. So you can configure it as per your comfort. First, you configure your VLAN pool. Next, you move to global policies. I'm going slow so you can make note of it. Please do. Under the global policies, just expand this. There is an option for you to create attachable access entity profile. This, in short, is called as AAEP. Okay? Attachable access AAEP entity profile. Now, just right click on this and create it. What is this AAEP? So AAEP is where you are basically associating whatever VLAN you created with these physical devices. Okay, so under AEP, I'll show it to you now. There are different domains that you can create. So one is called as the physical domain. What is physical domain? When your leaves are connected to just like your host devices, which are physical devices, like over here in this example. Leaf 101 is connected to one host, which is a physical device. Leaf 102 is connected to a host 2, which is again a physical device. But both of these devices have not been configured for L2 or L3. They're just simple host devices. Remember, like your servers. Okay? Imagine like your servers are attached to your leaves. In such cases, you choose the option as physical domain. There are three kinds of domains. There is something called as physical domain. Physical domain is where your physical device is getting connected towards your leaves. Another one is L2 domain. Another option that you have is an L3 domain. Now, what is L2 domain? Like I mentioned to you before, if your leaves, let's say this is a leaf, if your leaf is connected to a device where you have configured certain L2 protocols, right? Maybe this particular device is then connecting further. Maybe there is OTV that is configured on that particular device, or maybe you're running Fabric Path or any other advanced layer 2 technologies, right? In such cases, you need to choose the domain as layer 2 domain. Similarly, if your leaf is connected to a switch or any other device where you have configured certain layer 3 protocols, maybe you are running OSPF over here, maybe you're running EIGRP over here, maybe you're running BGP, then in such cases, you choose your domain as layer 3 domain. So you're associating your device, basically that particular domain, with the VLAN that you just created. These two put together is what is called as AAEP. Everyone has understood this? Now, what is this AAEP? AAEP is nothing but where you are associating your VLAN pool that you just created with the domain. Okay, with the device or with the domain. Now, when it comes to the domain, there are three kinds of domains which are available to you. One is called as the physical domain, another one is called as layer 2 domain, another one is your layer 3 domain. Now, what is physical domain? If your leaves are connected to physical devices like your servers, bare metal servers, right? Then you need to choose the option as physical domain. Similarly, if your leaf is connected to some devices where you have configured a couple of layer 2 protocols, let's say like OTV or Fabric Path or whatever it is that you're using, advanced layer 2 protocols, right? Then in such cases, you choose the option as layer 2 domain. Similarly, If in case your device is connected to your leaf is connected to a device between which you have certain advanced layer 3 protocols like OSPF, EIGRP, BGP, or whatever else it is that you are connecting it to, then in such cases you need to choose the domain as layer 3 domain. Okay, so whatever domain, whatever device it is that has been connected to that leaf, you need to associate it with the VLAN you just created in the first step. Okay, so now coming back to ACI. All right, so again back to Fabric tab. Under the Fabric tab, we need to move to Access Policies. So global policies, attachable access entity profile. So I'm just going to create one over here. Now you can give any name of your choice. I am giving the name as BMH AAEP. You can give anything, okay? But give some meaningful names so that you don't get confused. If there are quite a lot of policies that you have already created, then it shouldn't be confusing to you. Otherwise, you may end up associating the wrong things with the wrong profiles or the wrong policies, which eventually is going to hamper your communication or your policies, your configurations basically. All right, now over here this is just the name that I have given. You can see there is the domain as well. So for now, you if I just expand that, you have different kinds of domains. So there's the physical domain, the layer 2 domain, the layer 3 domain, and they've added a new one now in this version, which is your fiber channel domain as well. But anyways, ours is the physical domain. So the physical device which is connected to the leaf is a part of your physical domain. So I'm just going to give this as BMH domain associated to the VLAN that we just created. So we did create a VLAN pool, a VLAN 200 as well, right? So I'm just associating it over here and clicking on submit. Now, once this domain has been created, I choose this domain under this
Madhuri, are you sharing your screen?
on finish. Once your VLAN and your AEP have been created, next you can move to the interface level configurations. So first thing is under the interface, go ahead and create a couple of policies. So there's something called as interface policy. So over here, I'm just going to close all of this. So you can see there's an option for you called as interface policy. So I'm just going to expand that particular option. Under this, there is something called as policies, right? Now, if I expand policies, you see there's a list of policies that you can configure. So, like the name says, whatever policy it is that you create, these are for the interfaces that are connected on your leaves towards your end host device. Please remember, from ACI, you cannot configure these hosts. Okay, from ACI you cannot configure the hosts. You can only configure the leaf connections. मतलब कौन सा leaf कहाँ पे, which interface is connected on the leaf to that particular host. Those are the only things that you can do. You can never make configurations for the host from ACI. Okay, so now over here, let's create a couple of policies. So I'll create something called as the link level policy. So link level policy may you're basically mentioning what is the speed of that particular interface. Okay, the link level of that particular interface. So I'll just give it as 10 Gbps. Again, you can choose whatever it is that you want. I'm just giving some random values. I've created this one policy and I'll create another one to turn on CDP, LLDP as well. You can create any policy of your choice. I'm just creating 2 or 3 policies. Now, once I've created these policies, right? I've created 3 policies in total. You can create any number. There is no such limitation. You can create any of those policies. Just to show you in this lab, I have created three policies. Okay. Now, once you have created the individual policies, what I need to do next is to group those policies. So for that, I will be creating something called as the policy group. Please do make note of this as and when I am explaining it to you. And when I'm showing it to you, please look at the screen. I don't want you to miss out on the options. Okay. So first is under the interface tab, there is something called as the policy or the policies. Okay. There are a list of policies that you can create. You can create any of the policies that you want. Whatever policies it is that you have created, now you need to group those policies together. So over here, you can see under the interface policy, there is something called as policy group. That is nothing but where those policies that you created are grouped into one policy. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just going to right click, and you can see there are multiple options. Create leaf access port policy group. Leaf access. This is basically an access port, right? This is just a normal single interface wala port. If it was something to do with port channeling, like let's say these two leaves have been configured for VPC. Don't worry, we will be looking at how we configure VPC between the leaves and all that a little later. But if in case you have a port channel like this, your host or your connected device is aggregated into a port channel, then there is the appropriate option for that also. Okay. Similarly, for VPC downstream device also there is an option. All right. Similarly, there's something for the spine. Now, if you remember, I had clearly told you that nothing gets connected to the spine. All of the connections are only done on the leaf. Then, why is there an option to connect something to the spine? It says create spine access port policy group. Please remember, whenever it is that you're dealing with multi-pod or whenever it is that you're dealing with multi-site, right? Multi-pod. So multi-pod and multi-site is where you have multiple ACI fabrics. So first thing is they both are a little different with respect to each other. So what happens in multi-pod is where you have multiple ACI fabrics but the same APIC cluster. Okay, ACI fabric is nothing but the combination of your different leaves and spines. Okay, so in such cases, and you have the same AP cluster. In that cluster, you can insert a maximum of 32, again, depending on your ACI OS version. So this is what is called as multi-pod. Similarly, there is something called as multi-site. Multi-site is where I have different ACI fabric. Again, full ACI fabric, combination of leaves and spines along with the APIC. Again, I may have an entire ACI environment, or let's say one is in Bangalore, one is in Chennai, another one is in Delhi, right? Each of them have their own set of APIC clusters. Then, in such cases, to centrally manage all of these different sites, ACI sites, there is an option for you which is available, which is called as multi-site. So when you have multi-site wala combination, right, you can connect your spine because your ACI sites are all spread across. They could be spread across geographically. What you need to do is you need to connect all of your spines in all of these particular networks to a common inter-network, basically to a common WAN. Okay, they all need to connect to your internet, and this is done only from the spine, and this is done again only for multi-site. So in case you're configuring multi-site, that is where this option comes into picture, where you can configure that particular interface on the spine that should get connected towards your internet. Okay, that internet is what is called as internetwork. So in such cases, that is the only exception कि आप spine को कहीं और पे connect कर रहे हो, otherwise the spine does not connect anywhere except for the leaf. Only when you're using multi-site, the spine can connect to an external network. That is the only exception. So in case you're doing that, you can choose the appropriate option. So over here, I don't need any of these options. The most relevant for me is to create this access port, which is present on my leaf. So again, over here, I will be giving a name. You can give any name of your choice. So this is interface policy group. Okay, so this is the interface policy group where I'm grouping in all of the policies that I previously created. So we did create a link level policy, we created a CDP policy, an LLDP policy as well. Whatever other policies you may have created, go ahead and associate it. Now at the bottom, we did create an AAEP, attached access entity profile. So call in your AAEP that you created over here and click on submit. Once my interface policy group has been created, so my interface policy group has been created. Now what I should do is I need to associate. 1 minute, I'll just show it to you. So I have created my policies. I have grouped my policies into a policy group, right? I've grouped my policies into a policy group. Now I need to mention which interface, right? I should mention which interface. What is the interface number that I need to associate this group to? I need to mention which interface it is that I need to associate that policy group to. So that can be done under something called as the interface profile. So under the interface profile now I will create two interface profiles. So I create one for leaf 101. On 101 I need to mention कि कौन सा interface है that I want to associate with my policy group. So the interface that I need is E1/21. Similarly, I'll create another one for the other leaf. This interface is 1/27. Both of these interfaces will now be associated with the policy group that we just created. आपने policies तो configure किया, you're telling that these interfaces must be 10 Gbps, you're telling these interfaces must be capable of CDP as well as LLDP for the discovery of these devices, right? You created these individual policies. Then what you did was you grouped these policies in one policy group. Along with the group, you also associated them with the AAEP. So AAEP is nothing but the VLAN as well as the domain configuration, the association of your VLAN with your device, with your domain. So all of these are done now under the policy group. But this policy group should be applied to some interface, right? Where or how do you mention that? Where do you mention which interface it is that you need to apply all of these configurations for? This is done under something called as the interface profile. Okay, so over here there is something called as interface profile. If I just right click again, there's something called as create the leaf interface profile. Now I'm just going to create some interface profile. I'm keeping this as for leaf 101. Okay, and what is the interface? I'll write it down. The interface for leaf 101 is actually 21. Again, this is just the name. You can give any name of your choice. This is just the name. Okay. Now, it is asking us to select the interface selector. Over here again, you just need to give a name. You can give any name of your choice. I'm just giving whatever I gave before. Here, it is asking us to enter the interface ID. So, interface ID is 1/21. That is my interface on leaf 101. I need to associate this interface with the policy group that we just created. You need to push all of these configurations on some interface, right? So now, under this interface, you are basically configuring or you're basically associating it to your policy group that you previously created. This one.